A single photograph, just one frame frozen in time, now sits at the center of a growing storm. In it, a young boy named Jack stares into the camera, his expression guarded, his posture stiff. But it's not his face that has captured the world's attention. It's the dark, unmistakable bruise beneath his eye, a black eye that no one, it seems, ever truly explained. That image, taken months before Jack and the other children vanished, is now raising a chilling question. Were the warning signs there all along, quietly ignored until it was too late? Before we go any further, hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you can get first-hand updates on this story and others as they continue to unfold. The photograph was taken during what should have been a routine school day, a simple moment meant to capture childhood memories. But instead, it has become a piece of evidence that many believe points to a deeper, long-standing problem. At the time, the black eye reportedly raised concern among school staff. Bruises on children are not always unusual. Kids fall, they play, they get hurt. But something about this injury stood out. It wasn't just the mark itself, it was the context. The child's demeanor, the lack of a clear explanation, and the growing pattern that some began to notice. What makes this discovery even more troubling is that the photograph did not exist in isolation. It has since emerged that multiple injuries involving the children were documented over time. These were not one-off incidents, but part of a pattern that, in hindsight, appears increasingly alarming. Reports suggest that bruises, marks, and signs of possible neglect were observed by different individuals at different times. Yet, despite these observations, there was no comprehensive investigation that fully addressed the situation. Each incident seemed to exist in its own silo, never fully connected to form the bigger picture. This lack of coordinated response is now under intense scrutiny. When children present repeated signs of injury, standard safeguarding procedures are supposed to escalate concerns. But in this case, it appears that those procedures either failed or were insufficient. Questions are now being asked about how such patterns could go unnoticed or unaddressed for so long. Was it a failure of communication between institutions? Was it a lack of resources? Or was it something more systemic, an issue embedded in the very framework designed to protect vulnerable children? Behind these warning signs was a home environment that many now describe as deeply unstable. The family reportedly lived in a setting marked by chaos and isolation. Financial strain weighed heavily on the household, creating a constant backdrop of stress and uncertainty. Neighbors and those familiar with the situation have described a home that was largely cut off from the outside world, where interactions were limited and visibility into daily life was minimal. Isolation can often act as a shield, hiding troubling dynamics from public view. In this case, it may have played a significant role in allowing issues to persist without intervention. When families are disconnected from broader social networks, extended relatives, community groups, or even regular neighborhood interaction, it becomes much harder for concerns to be noticed, reported, and acted upon. The lack of external oversight can create an environment where problems not only exist but grow unchecked. Compounding these issues were admissions made by the stepfather, who acknowledged using drugs but insisted that he did not have a substance abuse problem. This distinction has drawn significant attention, as it raises questions about self-awareness and accountability. Drug use within a household, particularly one with children, introduces a range of risks, from impaired judgment to potential neglect. While the stepfather denied any serious issue, many are now questioning whether those claims were taken at face value without sufficient scrutiny. Substance use does not automatically equate to harm, but in a context already marked by instability, it becomes a critical factor that cannot be ignored. Experts often emphasize the importance of assessing the broader environment when evaluating such admissions. Was there a pattern of behavior that suggested deeper issues? Were there signs that the children's well-being was being compromised? These are the kinds of questions that, in retrospect, demand clearer answers. At some point, Child Protective Services did become involved. Officials visited the home, responding to concerns that had been raised. But despite these visits, the children were not removed from the household. This decision is now one of the most heavily scrutinized aspects of the case. Intervention agencies often operate under complex guidelines, balancing the need to protect children with the goal of keeping families together whenever possible. Removal is typically considered a last resort. However, in situations where multiple warning signs are present, documented injuries, reports from educators, and a potentially unstable home environment, the threshold for action becomes a critical issue. Critics argue that this case may highlight a gap between policy and practice, where the standards for intervention were not adequately met despite clear indicators of risk. Others caution against judging decisions with the benefit of hindsight, noting that caseworkers must often make difficult calls based on incomplete information. Teachers, meanwhile, played a key role in bringing concerns to light. Observations made within the school setting triggered official reports, setting off a chain of events that should have led to greater clarity. Educators are often among the first to notice changes in a child's behavior or appearance. In this case, their vigilance did prompt action, but what followed remains unclear. The outcomes of these reports have not been fully disclosed, leaving significant gaps in the narrative. Were follow-up investigations conducted? Were additional safeguards put in place? The lack of transparency has only deepened public concern, as people seek to understand how a case with so many red flags could reach such a tragic turning point. The timeline becomes even more unsettling when examining the days leading up to the children's disappearance. They were last publicly seen on May 1, 2025. After that, there is a 72-hour period that remains largely unverified. Those 3 days have become a focal point of the investigation, with authorities working to piece together what may have happened during that critical window. Unverified time gaps in missing persons cases often hold the key to understanding events. In this instance, the absence of clear information has created a vacuum filled with speculation and concern. Where were the children? Who saw them? What interactions took place? These are the questions that investigators are now racing to answer. Adding another layer of complexity are witness reports that appear to contradict the stepfather's account. Several individuals have described seeing suspicious vehicle movements in the area during the relevant time frame. These observations do not align with the narrative provided by the family, raising the possibility that key details may have been omitted or misrepresented. Witness testimony can be both valuable and challenging. Memories can be imperfect, and interpretations can vary. However, when multiple accounts point to inconsistencies, they cannot be easily dismissed. Investigators must now determine whether these reports are credible and how they fit into the broader timeline. The situation is further complicated by actions taken by the children's mother, who reportedly deleted a calling application from her phone. This decision has made it more difficult to verify her statements and reconstruct communication patterns during the critical period. In modern investigations, digital evidence often plays a crucial role, providing timestamps, locations, and records of interaction. The removal of such data raises immediate questions. Was it an attempt to protect privacy, or does it indicate something more concerning? Without access to those records, investigators are left with an incomplete picture, forcing them to rely more heavily on other forms of evidence. As the case continues to unfold, attention has also turned to the stepfather's legal troubles. He has since faced unrelated criminal charges, a development that has intensified scrutiny of the household environment. While these charges are not directly connected to the children's disappearance, they contribute to a broader assessment of character and behavior. Patterns of conduct can provide important context in investigations, helping to build a more comprehensive understanding of the individuals involved. In this case, the new charges have prompted renewed questions about what life inside the home may have been like and whether earlier interventions might have changed the outcome. What emerges from all of this is a deeply troubling picture, one defined not by a single failure, but by a series of missed opportunities. A photograph that raised questions. Injuries that were documented but not fully explored. A home environment marked by instability. Reports that led to action, but perhaps not enough. And a timeline filled with gaps and contradictions. As the search for answers continues, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. This case is not just about what happened in the final days before the children disappeared. It is about everything that came before, the warning signs, the decisions, and the moments where a different choice might have led to a different outcome. And now, As investigators work to uncover the truth, the world is left grappling with a haunting realization. Sometimes, the clues are there from the very beginning. The question is whether anyone is able or willing to see them for what they truly are.